This old camper van on 42-inch tall tires actually needs to fit 42-inch tall tires. So after installing a modern front end, we're going to reshape our wheel wells, collect some really awesome, strong, reliable parts, attempt to build a bumper, and then remember a few of my friends that recently passed. Dudes, we are already running into a problem with the front end swap. The van is an 03. These fenders are from, I believe, a 15. And there's some pretty big differences in the way things bolt up, which we can handle building brackets. We're a fab shop, that's no big deal. But you know what, let me put the camera down and I'll show you something else that's pretty interesting. The newer front ends are a little bit longer. This is the old hood. I've got the new hood and everything, we're about to put it on. But I was just wanting to see like the difference in shapes, and I do find that interesting. And I was not sure if the core support was gonna need to be changed out between the two, and I still don't at this point. But I've bought a bunch of random stuff that I think we need off of Amazon, like big plastic brackety things, and we will see how complicated this front end swap is. It's supposed to be pretty straightforward and pretty easy, but there's some pretty disparaging differences here. What I'm trying to accomplish with this front end swap is better lighting, so I can get bigger lights. I want more modern looks, and the front ends on the newer ones seem like they have way more space for airflow to get through our intercooler, to get through our AC condenser, and our radiator. Parts and pieces are rolling in for the diesel swap. This, I don't even know if I need it. This might be identical to the one that's in there, but it was so cheap. I want to say it was less than 30 bucks. This is the expansion tank for the 6-liter turbo diesel that you could get in the 05, 06, 07s, I think. Somewhere in there. They switched where you could get a 6-liter turbo diesel. So what I decided to do, since we're putting a 5.9 liter Cummins in here, is I went on eBay and I found a bunch of different parts and pieces that are for the 6-liter vans, intercooler, radiator, because I figure that's gonna be sized so close to what we need for the 5.9 Cummins, and they're made to fit in this van. So we'll see if I need to make brackets or whatever to make it all bolt in, or if they all just nest in there really nicely. I have no idea. The pile of parts has showed up, so I need to cut through, open a bunch of this stuff, figure out exactly what it is, and then these first couple weeks, it's just gonna be a hodgepodge of doing stuff as it shows up, and then we'll be able to make like an actual game plan and be like, okay, let's do all the suspension or whatever. So this is just the next piece of the puzzle. Oh, huge side mirrors. These are gonna be a giant upgrade over those tiny little ones on here. I'm gonna use the 6-liter radiator, the AC condenser, and the intercooler because they're made to like intermingle and interlock. I can do lots of custom work here. We can make custom intercoolers, we can buy custom intercoolers. There's all kinds of things that we can do for the cooling system, but knowing that there's already a cooling package that is made to go into this van, to me, is so valuable. So it was all eBay orders, but it was a combination of some like Chinese repop radiators with some used junkyard intercoolers, and with this combination of parts, I think it's going to be the fastest and the most surefire way to get a functional cooling package in this van. Then once we start using it and towing with it, if we need to add some extra cooling capacity in some regard, we can deal with it then. Most of the vans on big tires that I see have just crazy lifts. We don't want a crazy lift. I would like to be able to stuff a 42 if possible. So that means there's gonna be a lot of cutting. And right now I'm just doing like a preliminary cut. We're gonna do an initial cut to try to set a ride height somewhat close to what I think it's gonna be. And then we can figure out what else to hack out of here, because I'm telling you, there's gonna need to be a lot of material removed in order for me to get the performance that I want. I'm not sure if you could tell, we are 2 inches shorter than we were a minute ago. I like and don't like. I like the position for our suspension geometry. It's gonna be a lot easier to package our suspension, and it's gonna probably be a little more stable going down the highway and whatnot. I'm planning on running sway bars front and rear with quick disconnects that we're gonna build. So it's gonna be, no matter, it could be 2 inches higher than this and still be very stable. But all that to say, the shorter we get, the closer we get to the ground, the more stable it's gonna be. I started to get used to its height before, but I think that this is gonna be a little bit more functional and usable at this height. Oh geez, Nate, don't do that. getting in and out of the van, and I'm planning on building the slider in a way that's going to make for an easy step to get in and out. You know what? I'm curious what our height is all the way to the top of the roof. We are at 98, we'll just call it 99 inches. I was gonna say 98 and 7/8. 99 inches, so 8'3". That's actually not that bad. But it's tall, don't get me wrong, but I'd be willing to bet that my Land Rover is actually a hair taller than that. That's not too bad. It's just such a big body that it makes it seem like it's a monster truck. It just looks huge. I know I've got a lot of new van people watching the channel, and this is gonna be something that I know is gonna be intimidating to your average van viewer. Anybody can cut to make a tire fit, but then once you get into inner fender liners, you know, pinch weld, stuff like this, if you've never done it, it's a little intimidating, but I promise you this is not that big of a deal. We're gonna do what's called, well, what I've always called a cut and fold right here. So we're gonna cut this, and then we're gonna fold it over and put a bunch of seam sealer on it. And then up here, I mean, this is a big pinch weld here on the inner fender, but dude, this is gonna be a project. What my plan is to make a couple of slices, and then we can slowly start to push this out and away from our fender. And then once we get it to the point where we can look at it from the side and none of this is here anymore, then I can pull this fender off. We can weld things, like tack it in place, and start to go through all the motions to get rid of all of this low-hanging fruit in here and make this a nice big round wheel well like we need for a nice big round tire. Today's video is sponsored by Onyx Off-Road. Not only is it only $34 a year, but it is stuffed with tools that make it very easy to make a route that you can send your friends. It makes it very easy to discover places in your area if you don't know exactly where to go, or if you're in a new area and you need a plan B because the Onyx map shows you that there might be a fire that just popped up. There are many different features that this app has, and at that price, there is nothing on the market, in my opinion, that can even touch the quality of software like this. So I don't just partner up with anybody, I partner up with companies that I believe in, and with our coupon code you can save an additional 20% off. But either way, don't go just drive around aimlessly like we all used to in the woods. Go prepared, use good software, and take advantage of your time off in a way that's constructive. Thank you, Onyx, for supporting the channel and sponsoring this video.
I think I heard somebody's 10 mil.
This being the first Ford that I've ever owned, I gotta be honest, I'm super impressed with the build quality. This is pretty thick steel for an inner fender liner. It's definitely substantially thicker than the inner fender liners that were on my Tacoma. And not only that, whatever they're coating all these surfaces with is really rust resistant, because I just opened up some big pockets of areas that you can't reach to clean at all. And they had sitting debris and leaves and pine needles and all kinds of stuff in there. And once I blew all that out with the blower, no rust. Like no rust anywhere. No rust on bolt heads. No rust in between seams. Very, very impressed with a vehicle that has 572,000 miles. So again, I've never been a Ford guy or anything like that, but this being my first Ford, I am very impressed with the way that they have constructed this van. Every morning I'm hunting for deer right now on my property. It's deer season. But right back in there, I am 99% sure there's a bear den. For sure, I've seen a bear right here. I had a couple neighbors that have come and told me, hey, we see bears like coming on and off your property. And sure enough, first day of hunting season, I'm walking down here and I hear a bear literally right there. So Mrs. Dirt Lifestyle is not very excited about that. And I mean, it's made a complete mess of right here. It's clearly using this path a ton. You can see how it's just, everything's stomped down. Oh, this is all blackberries, and there's like hardly any berries left. So it's been up here eating a lot. And it was like snorting at me when I came down first day of hunting season. So the good thing is I have a deer tag and a bear tag. I've eaten bear a few times. I have not gotten a bear. But Mrs. Dirt Lifestyle is not very excited about sending our kids down here anymore until either winter comes or bear removal happens. So we'll see. Either way, it's been a very exciting time because we've been harvesting tons and tons and tons of blackberries as a family. We've been harvesting out of my greenhouse like crazy. We have been canning like crazy. We have so much food stored, which is very exciting. But as I'm super gung-ho on this van, as I'm working like crazy on this van, I'm also out here hunting and getting ready for the fall. I also need to locate some wood. I've been slacking. So here in the next week, I gotta go get a couple truckloads of wood so that we're prepared for the winter. Anyway, back to van stuff.
Every time I use a hammer this size for body work, I feel like a monkey learning to use a tool for the first time. But the reality is I've used body hammers on this kind of job and they just don't work as good as a big, dumb, heavy hammer. So that's why we're using a big, dumb, heavy hammer to bend over these seams.
I am very confident we're gonna be able to fit a 42. By the time we put all of the sheet metal back in the places that it needs it, by the time we put like a automotive seam sealer and everything, and we paint the wheel wells black and all that, this is gonna look very close to factory. It's gonna be awesome. Anyway, in between, I have been collecting parts. This is a Ford NP205. I got it for 300 bucks, which by today's prices, that is a screaming deal. I'm very excited about that. The Ford NP205 has big benefits like the fact that it's a driver side offset. If we got a Chevy NP205 transfer case, it would be a passenger side offset and we'd have to have a passenger side front axle. Because we're using a driver side front axle, we're sticking with the Ford. I've also heard that I think the Fords have a 32 spline output. If aficionados, let me know in the comments if that's true or not, if they have a 32 spline output. In any case, the 205 is a very proven platform. It's a 2-to-1 reduction. We're going to add a reduction box in the front, which actually, after we shoot this, I will cut to up in my office and we will talk about reduction and we'll calculate everything out to make sure that we're gonna have enough reduction with some of the options that we have. Aside from this thing, which is awesome, we got a mechanical injection pump. I am beyond excited for this. I've had a number of 12 valves and 24 valves over the years. This is off of an older 5.9 Cummins. This is off of a 96, and this is a P7100 pump. These are phenomenal pumps. I got this for 500 bucks, which is, some people might think that's not a good price, but dude, I promise you, that is a good price for a used P7100. Because now we have a core that I'm gonna send to industrial injection. They're gonna work their magic on this thing. And I need to talk to their gurus down there, what they think, but I feel like 400 to 500 horse would be a really good target for a P-pump swapped 24 valve that would still be able to tow very easily and not get too hot or any of that. So that's kind of what I'm thinking. I'm thinking a 12 valve swapped 24 valve engine, get the best of both worlds and put some high quality, high flowing parts in there and see if we can church up this old motor. Now, let's cut to calculating the reduction for this thing, see if we're actually on the right track, and then we come back. I'm honestly tired of cutting fenders. I want to start working on the front bumper.
I need to decide how to gear these diffs and decide how I want to build our transfer case setup. So we need a crawl ratio and we need to see how fast we're spinning this motor at 70 miles per hour. And with a 40-inch tall tire, a 513 diff ratio, and our overdrive ratio of 0.73, we are spinning this motor at 2200 RPM at 70. And for some non-diesel people, you might think that that's really high, but I had a bone stock mega cab dually that I used to haul cross country at 2,800 RPM for entire states, and the thing had no problems at all with a 5.9 Cummins in a manual. Our peak horsepower comes in at about 2,800 RPM, and our peak torque comes in at 1,400 RPM, and it carries that torque for quite a ways. Especially if we play around with turbos and stuff, we can make sure that we push that torque out. So I'm really feeling like a 513 is a good ratio, but the 488 doesn't look half bad either. We're spinning just over 2,000 RPM at 70 miles per hour in 6th gear with a 488 ratio. So I just need to decide if I want to lean a little more like crawl or a little more highway with this van. It'll be fine in either scenario, so I think it's win-win. As far as our crawl ratio is concerned, since we have a 6-to-1 first gear in this manual transmission, it gives us a 117-to-1 crawl ratio with a 488 diff, which is absolutely beautiful. We can gear our transfer case down a little bit lower than 4-to-1. We can go to 5.44-to-1 if we use a 2.72-to-1 reduction box in front of our transfer case. I hope everybody's keeping up on this. I've done this so many times that I don't want to like beat a dead horse and spend too much time on this, but I hope that you're seeing what I'm seeing. All that low end power does give us a ton of forgiveness in these different aspects, but I'd like this to crawl as low and as slow as possible just to be able to control this weight as much as possible going over big obstacles. You might remember that the Jeep TJ that I built with the TDI with a 5.44-to-1 ended up being right around 117, and that thing was really, really controllable on all the big stuff. So this is a really good crawl ratio. If I can go any deeper, I will, but we're going to see what kinds of parts I can find to marry up to this that I know is going to handle the kind of power that we're going to send through it. To be completely honest, my expectations for this front bumper are very unreasonable. I would love lots of coverage. I want a very low amount of weight. It needs to be strong, and it needs to be rigid enough to be a front cross member and a winch mount. That's dreamland. There's no way we're going to be able to accomplish all of that, but I'm going to start with what I know. I know that I want like a back plate that is going to go across all of the factory bumper bolts. We'll probably add some stuff in later to add a few more bolts, but for now we're just going to get these factory 8 bolts made into this plate, and then I can figure out a way to mount a winch. So again, just working from what I know we need, and then we're going to slowly start working out. And originally I was going to do an aluminum skin over basically like a steel winch mount, but this van is so huge, even with aluminum, you're just going to start tacking on so much weight. And for what? You know, you'd have to get some fairly thick aluminum to get the kind of protection that you would be after. Whereas in my opinion, I could get just as dismal protection out of steel tube and honestly, maybe even make it lighter. I'm not sure yet. Right now, I'm just trying to get some stuff up there in place so that I can make the decisions that I need to in order to get to version 1.0 of this bumper build. Right now, I've got 3 different pneumatic benders in the shop, and I've got the JD Square, the Swag Off-Road pneumatic bender, and the Rogue Fab. I thought for sure that the Swag Off-Road one was going to be my favorite, and it is an amazing bender. And I thought I was going to prefer to bend horizontal, but the more I use the Rogue Fab bender, it is winning me over. I feel very fortunate the companies like Rogue Fab want to send me benders to test out, and to be honest, I would have never tested this if they hadn't sent it. But now that they have, and the more that I'm using it, with no contracts, no obligations, I'm just telling you, I'm starting to see a ton of value in bending vertically if you have the headspace in your shop. And the way that they put this thing together makes it very easy to be completely true and square from bend to bend. But anyway, if you're interested in seeing some sort of a bender comparison video, let me know in the comments. I'm I don't want to waste my time making something like that if people aren't really that interested in it. But if you are in the market for a bender, I wouldn't mind doing some sort of a comparison to let you know what the differences are. Oh, dude, that looks great. That's really straight. I've got some things tacked on here. This is a plate from Barnes 4-wheel drive for a Warn 8274. We were going to modify it to work with this. Nick made a plate for the front of this, but once I started looking at this, I actually like this a lot better. I've got a couple of lights here, and what I'm thinking is we're either going to put them up here, or we might tuck them in like right there. I kind of like that down in there. On top of that, we have a lot of connective tissue, as it were, that needs to happen. Something here, for sure. Very likely something here. And then, I don't know, a little something to protect the lights. We'll see. This is the part where the creative license comes in. The more projects that I put together, the more that I push these trucks, the more that I see flaws in the way that I have designed things previously. I'm finding that oftentimes, way back in the day, I was overbuilding almost everything and making parts so much heavier than they needed to be. These days, I continuously am finding myself leaning more minimalist with my approach, and this bumper is no different. As I'm building this, I'm deleting things that I originally thought I needed, and I'm like, you know what, with some basic gussets and some basic design enhancements, I can make this strong enough as a small package that I don't need to add all that other stuff. But this bumper will be tested extremely hard. This is a heavy truck. We're gonna actually wheel the crap out of it, and if a failure occurs, I will show you, just like that Moto-Built bumper that I had fail on the trail. I want to always be learning and testing. It's so satisfying and so fun to me. And I would almost argue that for me, it's almost as fun as the actual wheeling itself, is just the testing of ideas. And so we're going to build a really small, very trim bumper and test it to see how it performs on something this heavy. A little wider. Yeah, like right there. See, I feel like I could do two little strips. One here and one there, and they'd be totally hidden by the light. Dude, I don't think I'm gonna add any more tube. I really like how clean it is. I think I'm gonna add gussets. I'm gonna gusset here, and I'm gonna gusset like on the inside behind the...
Yeah.
To go up the plate.
Okay. Yeah.
And if I do that and we throw two like 1.5 or 2 inch strips behind the lights, dude, I think it's gonna be plenty strong. I am going to be combing the comment section for this one for sure, because we made some huge changes, and I'm so interested in your thoughts on the differences in the way this thing looks now. I don't think this front end is going to be for everybody, but let me sell you on a few different things if you're kind of on the fence on whether or not you think this modern front end looks good. Let's just talk about basic performance. This is a ton of light that is going to be able to project down the trail and on the road, which I really value. But on top of that, this is probably 30 to 40% more airflow into this humongous grill versus the small grill we had before. And that is going to make a giant difference with a high performance engine, because here at sea level, we might not have any problems even towing with as far as like cooling capacity. But let's say we decide to go to higher elevation, or we go to Death Valley where it gets, you know, $110, $120 or something like that. I'm trying to use AC. I've got this thing fully loaded. I'm trying to climb a big hill. Having that extra cooling capacity could make a very big difference. And then on top of that, we've added cooling capacity with our bumper. And this is something that I was thinking about as I was building it, because it was all the way up to the last minute that I was still considering plating all this. But I've built other bumpers like this before, and they definitely cool better. There's so many voids for air to make its way into our intercooler, our radiator, AC condenser. That radiator comes all the way down to here. So having these, even the speed holes, it all makes a difference being able to get air into these places where the factory bumper is just like a big air dam and it doesn't allow airflow hardly at all. And then if we built a big bumper with lots of coverage, not only does it add a ton of weight up here, but it's also going to reduce the amount of airflow that we get through that. So again, super curious on your thoughts. I consider this front bumper a rough draft right now. We've got a really good start, and I just need time to think about it as I'm building other things as to how I would tweak this, if at all. One thing I'm gonna do for sure is I want to add some sort of a cross member back here a little bit with some sort of a bolt-on section to bolt into the rear of this winch plate, because this is a big heavy van. If we're doing big heavy van recoveries, we need big heavy mounting points to be able to make sure that we're safely able to max out this winch. It's a 12,000 pound winch. That's gonna be fine for if we're just like on something really slick and we just need a little bit of extra oomph to get over it. But if we're really high centered on something and we need to double this up with a snatch block, then we're gonna have 24,000 pounds of towing capacity or of pulling capacity out of this winch. That's bananas. So we need to make sure that this is super strong, and we need to make sure that whatever chassis mount, which I haven't figured out yet, maybe it'll be on the cross member, whatever chassis mount that I add in order to have it to use as a front recovery point also needs to be like rated for 24,000 pounds. It needs to be super, super strong.
During the filming of this video, my wife and I went to Vancouver Island for Matt and Stacy's celebration of life, and holy shit, am I absolutely fired up from it. I mean, it was devastating, and it was uplifting, and it was healing. It was everything that you'd expect. But you know, there's like over 1,000 people showed up, and the quality of the people that were there, and the strength of their parents, and getting to meet all their friends, it was incredibly motivating and reaffirmed this feeling that I had. Like, I just want to put everything else on pause, and I want to build this van, and I want to do this trip that I had planned with them to Alaska. I am so fired up on this right now. It is like incredible. And it's honestly, it's pushing me into a different phase of my life that I just feel so incredibly grateful for everything going on around me, and incredibly motivated to make use of every single day.
No deer, no bear yet, but I did get our wood. So I got to get splitting. Before I do that, you voted on a van name. Thank you, Mrs. Dirt Lifestyle, for counting every single vote in the last video in the comment section on the van names, and it looks like Van Diesel wins it. I know there's other vans out there named Van Diesel. Well, there's other vans out there with the names of all the things that people were voting for, but let's be honest, Van Diesel is a perfect name for this big, heavy-duty diesel van. So I'm pretty pumped that we finally got that, and I just want to say from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for all of the support that you guys give us, all the positive comments, all the positive things you say to me when you see me on the trail or at the gas station. It means the world to us. So thank you for the support. We'll see you on the next one.